I saw this article that's so annoying. It was literally comparing. It was by one of those big game journalist companies that hopefully shuts down. They were saying, what the heck happened to Schedule 1? People bought it and it was so hyped and so big, and then the player base just dropped off, and then it's not making any money. How could it? See, this is why indie games are bad. There's this concept called buying a game, playing the game, and beating it, and then you're done with the game. And maybe months or years later, you replay it, but not everything has to be something that's like battle passes or constant updates where there's no end to the game, and then you realize by the few months into playing the game that you don't even enjoy it. You're just addicted. See that system that they're using, they're like shocked that a game could fall off. Meanwhile, they don't realize that game already made a huge amount of money just from initial sales. They're not going from initial sales. They just want to have constant transactions. That's what's frustrating about these companies and these game journalists that promote them. And that's the other thing. Journalism is supposed to be about getting to the truth. These game journalists literally just glaze these big companies that make awful games. It's so strange how things have warped to the way that they are currently. But thankfully, game journalists are kind of not being taken seriously anymore. And I think everyone kind of knew that. But now people are actually speaking up against it, and people are realizing that it's a fake career, to be honest, and shouldn't be taken seriously unless you're doing it for fun or you provide genuine content that people want to see. Imagine finishing a game in weeks' time in a modern year. Must be a commercial flop. I know! Can you imagine that? They don't have any battle passes, any mount aesthetics for an animal you don't need to ride in the game that costs more than the game. Diablo. It's so frustrating when you see something that has a flaw that everyone can point out, and you just want to tell the person who's causing these problems, hey, this is what we don't like, here's how you can fix it, and you'll still make good money. But then again, they just want to ignore it because they're like, it will still make good money, but we could make a little bit more if we do this other scummy stuff. Even if in the long run, what we're doing is we're tanking the gaming industry, and then eventually there'll be less good games, and then it'll be viewed as less serious, and then by the time we leave and try to be a vampire to some other franchise or medium, the gaming is just never the same. Okay, here's the good part though about gaming. Even when that does inevitably happen, I think the game industry is going to get a whole lot worse before it gets better. But it will get better because there are people that are still passionate about games. That is the difference between gaming and other, like, mediums, I would say. Like, for example, the movie industry is almost entirely ruined because there's just so much oversaturation. But gaming still has people that can more accessibly make a game. It's easier to make a good indie game than it is to try to make a good film that gets recognition. You know what I mean? That's why gaming can survive. The only successful games are the ones that keep you on the hook for a few years. Well, here's the thing. Something else they're forgetting is replay value. And then when a game gets replayed and people start talking about it again, then there's another boost in sales. And on top of that, you can also do updates to a game. I've mentioned this before on stream. There was a guy who makes a bunch of indie games, and he shouldn't be making much money off of them, but he does. Because he constantly keeps advertising his games, even his old ones, and he keeps updating them to try to make them better, including the old ones and his recent ones. And by recirculating that, new people can discover their game, and the people that have already played it can replay it, and then advertise for you about why the game is great. So they're forgetting replay value, or kind of like a renaissance period for a game that already came out. And it still makes more money to obviously be scummy, but then you lose faith. I've talked about it like karma points in a video game. You can build up good faith with the community and then kind of have some leverage for when you make mistakes with a bad game, but then try to do better and it'll come back. But you keep making more and more mistakes. You lose faith with your fan base. And sometimes don't even have an ending. I know! Like, League of Legends, which is pretty much a drug, let's be honest. I don't know about you, but I'm ready for the gaming market crash and the rise of new indie studios. I'm ready for it. It's just gonna suck. There's gonna be game companies that have workers that want to make genuinely good games, but they're gonna be bought out by these terrible companies, and then they're gonna crash, and all these game ideas they had are gonna go down the toilet. Because you can't carry the games with you when you open a new studio on your own independently if you came up with those game concepts under contract for this other game company. Like, for example, the studio that made Stray looks like a really fun game. I want to play it on stream one day. The cat game where you're wandering through, like, post-tech apocalypse ruins or whatever. The company that made Stray was bought out by this weird child executive born with a silver spoon in their mouth, made a deal behind their back with a separate studio, and then they all left, right? They left of their own accord. But they had 50 game ideas in the back burner while they were under that company. So now that they ran off to make their own studio, which I'm hoping to make good things, they don't get to work and do anything at all vaguely similar to those 50 game ideas they were already working on. And this is the company that made Stray, the team that made Stray. Some of those games probably could have been gems. That's what I'm worried about when the game market crashes, because all these good studios are going to be bought and sold or crashed when there's executives that are going to ruin things, see money signs. But yeah, indie games. Sorry, I know I went off on a tangent there, but Alfie, you literally made me bring up all this stuff that I was thinking of. I'm glad you did, because I'm glad I got that off my chest. Nature is healing, forest fire raging in the background. Listen, I'm a representative of nature, and I will tell you, everything is fine. It's like, you know what it is? It's like fire hardening. Do you know that concept? To make a bow and arrow, you have to harden the arrows over fire by putting them above the flame. They become softer, right? But then you get to shape them and mold them into a straighter arrow, and then once they cool off, they're way harder and stronger than before they were fire hardened. But you might burn some arrows in the process, so it's kind of like burning away the rot or the weakness, and then what's left is the quality, and from there that quality can be built upon and made better. So yes, it's rebirth. Think Phoenix, it's rebirth. Think Takanashi Kiara, KFP, Fried Phoenix, alright?